The air inside the grand hall of the televised panel debate was thick with anticipation. Judge John Roberts sat at the center table, his black suit perfectly pressed, his calm, judicial demeanor giving nothing away. To his right sat Representative Jasmine Crockett, her posture straight, eyes sharp, her smile holding just enough warmth to disguise the steel behind it. The topic of the evening was intelligence in modern governance, but the producers had booked these two not for polite policy chatter, they wanted sparks. From the moment the cameras rolled, Roberts took the lead. Representative Crockett, he began with a tone that blended charm and condescension, you have often claimed that your grasp of constitutional law rivals those of the highest court. Would you be willing to prove that, here and now? His smile carried a challenge, one he expected to win. Crockett tilted her head slightly, as though amused. I'm always willing to prove myself, Judge. But the real question is, are you ready to keep up? The audience chuckled, sensing where this could go. Roberts pressed forward. Let's make this interesting, he said, glancing at his notes. I'll pose a few constitutional hypotheticals, ones even seasoned scholars find challenging. Let's see how quickly you respond. His voice was confident, but Crockett leaned back casually, resting her elbow on the armrest like someone waiting for their opponent to overextend. His first question was sharp, technical, loaded with obscure constitutional phrasing. Without missing a beat, Crockett dissected it, citing case law, historical context, and the philosophical underpinnings of the framers' intent. She didn't just answer, she painted a clear picture of the legal landscape. Roberts blinked. His second question was harder, weaving in tricky precedent conflicts. Again, Crockett's answer landed with surgical precision, dismantling the hidden trap in his phrasing. The audience murmured, some smiling, some wide-eyed. It was only 3 minutes into the exchange when Roberts' voice faltered. His third question trailed off, the confidence in his tone giving way to hesitation. His fingers fiddled with the edge of his notes. Crockett, catching the shift, leaned forward and said softly, Judge, you look like you're searching for the question you wanted to ask. Or, the one you hoped I couldn't answer. The room erupted in laughter and applause. Roberts sat back, lips pressed into a thin line, and for the first time that evening, his eyes didn't meet hers. The laughter lingered in the air like an echo Roberts couldn't shake. Cameras caught the twitch in his jaw as he adjusted his tie, buying time to gather his composure. He glanced at the moderator, who seemed torn between stepping in and letting the moment play out. But Crockett didn't wait. Since we're in a battle of minds, she said with a measured calm, let's talk about what intelligence really means. It's not just about memorizing statutes or reciting case law. It's about knowing when the law protects the people and when it's being twisted to serve power instead of justice. Her words cut through the hum of the room. Even those who had come to see Roberts dominate were now leaning forward, drawn in by the shift in tone. Roberts tried to interrupt, Representative, but Crockett kept going, her voice steady, unflinching. You've sat on the bench long enough to know how precedent can be used like a weapon, she continued. But I've sat in communities where those decisions don't look like theory. They look like a grandmother losing her home, a teenager getting a sentence that will follow him for life, a working parent being stripped of their right to vote. That's the ground-level view, Judge. And it's not something you can find in a law book. The audience broke into a softer kind of applause this time, not for the cleverness of a comeback, but for the weight of her words. Roberts shifted uncomfortably, as though the bright studio lights had suddenly grown hotter. He reached for one more counterattack. With all due respect, Representative, we all operate under the same Constitution. My role is to interpret it as it is, not as I wish it to be. Crockett's eyes narrowed slightly, but her smile didn't fade. And yet, she said, your interpretation has a habit of leaning toward those who already have power. That's the flaw in pretending judicial neutrality is the same as fairness. You can claim to be neutral while the scale tips in one direction, every single time. There was a low murmur from the crowd, and even the moderator seemed caught in the gravity of the exchange. Roberts inhaled as if to respond, but the words didn't come. Crockett took the silence and ran with it. You wanted to test my intelligence tonight. But the thing about IQ battles, Judge, is they're not measured in clever retorts or legal riddles. They're measured in how fast you can connect principle to reality. How fast you can see past the walls of your chamber into the lives of people who will never step foot in one. And if you collapse under that kind of reality check in just 3 minutes, she let the sentence hang in the air, unfinished, letting the audience fill in the ending for themselves. The crowd erupted again, some standing now, their applause rolling like a wave. Robert's face was unreadable, but the faint pinch around his eyes betrayed the pressure he was under. Crockett leaned back, almost serene, as though the heat of the moment hadn't touched her. "Judge," she added, her voice warm but edged with finality, "the real test isn't about who can win an argument under studio lights. It's about who walks away having learned something. I hope tonight, that's both of us." It was a masterstroke, not just a takedown, but a close that offered dignity if Roberts chose to take it. But he didn't respond. The moderator stepped in, thanking both participants, his voice just slightly hurried, as if eager to move to commercial before the weight of the exchange settled any deeper. As the cameras cut away, Crockett stood and extended her hand. Roberts hesitated for a beat, then shook it, his grip polite but lacking conviction. Offstage, crew members whispered about how quickly the tide of the debate had turned. In the green room, producers were already replaying the clip, knowing they had captured a viral moment. Later that night, social media lit up. Clips of Roberts fumbling mid-question were spliced with Crockett's poised dismantling of his logic. Hashtags like hashtag 3-minute collapse and hashtag Crockett IQ check trended within the hour. Comment sections were flooded with viewers marveling not just at her quick wit, but at the way she had woven real-world stakes into the exchange. Roberts, for his part, issued no public statement. Those who knew him said he was unusually quiet in the days that followed. Some speculated he had underestimated Crockett's command of both law and rhetoric. Others suggested the encounter had given him more to think about than he'd care to admit. Crockett, however, carried on with her schedule as if the moment were just another day's work. In an interview 2 days later, when asked if she had defeated Roberts, she smiled and shook her head. "It's not about winning or losing," she said. "It's about raising the bar for the conversation. If we keep treating intelligence like it's just a game of who can quote the most cases, we're missing the point. Intelligence is knowing how those cases touch real people's lives." That answer, calm, pointed, and unshakably grounded, traveled nearly as far as the original exchange. And for those who had watched her face down one of the country's most powerful judicial figures in real time, it cemented the impression that Jasmine Crockett didn't just win debates. She changed them, and somewhere, Judge Roberts knew that truth too. Maybe he wouldn't say it out loud. Maybe he'd never admit that 3 minutes had changed the tone of the entire evening. But he had felt it, that shift, that sting, that rare moment when the robe and the title weren't enough to shield him from a sharper mind, a stronger conviction, and a truth too clear to dodge.